Hi there, Theresa here from wingsoflighthealingers.com, here with your most recent energy update. So I wanted to touch base with you because there's been a lot of epiphanies coming through. For some of you that have watched the latest cards of the day, you'll notice that this is kind of a time for that. It has been the past 3 days, and it's going to continue over the next 3 or 4. Part of the reason for that is because there is an eclipse. It's in Pisces. Pisces is a sign that's very psychic. It's definitely part of my astrology and part of, why I have access to some of the information that I have. So definitely supports the psychic gifts. Some of you are going to be noticing your dreams, a lot of epiphanies. Some people call these downloads. I call them epiphanies and knowledge and upgrades of insight into certain situations in your life. So what typically will happen is your soul will have a certain level of understanding of what's happening and why certain situations are in your life. And then, your higher self then the information descends to your higher self, and then it further descends into your auric fields and into your human body. Some people have access to this information in different ways, but this is how it typically works. So it comes into our physical fields last. And that's when it'll come into an epiphany and say, oh, that's why I've been dealing with that. I always love those situations because I specifically won't go in and ask all the time. Sometimes I will ask, okay, what is the underlying situation? And sometimes they'll tell me, well, we could tell you, but we prefer for you to go ahead and go through the experiences so that you have a chance to react authentically based on what you've learned. Because if you have an understanding cognitively of what the lesson is, then sometimes it can keep you from it can hinder the process, essentially, is what they're trying to state. So it's a long way of stating that. So a lot of these situations are Blu-ray situations that are coming up for the twins and those that resonate with this path. And one of the things that they're talking about largely is authenticity and boundaries. So these definitely tie into Blu-ray lessons. Those of you that have been part of my Blu-ray webinar understand what is tied to being a Blu-ray and how you can recognize whether or not you're dealing with a Blu-ray lesson or if you are experiencing Blu-ray lifetime or if you are a Blu-ray soul, okay? Yes, I'm hearing the question, are both you and your twin the same ray? And the answer is always yes. You both are the same ray. So big thing coming up is, and they were talking a lot about it last night. In fact, they've been bringing it up for the pattern has been started to show up a good 3 weeks. It's really come to a head right now though. And you're gonna pay attention and you're gonna notice some of this. So it's about standing in your power. I'm talking specifically, it's for both twins, but it's the feminine is really being asked to stand in their power in front of the masculine. That can be very challenging to do, particularly if we're having to do it in the form of boundaries. Boundaries are part of personal power. May not seem like it. It's also part of self-love. So this is about standing in your power, especially when the masculine asks you to do something you don't want to do. Before, a lot of you are going to notice, some of you that have been on this path and cognitively and have known that this is a situation with their twin have been dealing with this for a while now. Like back when my twin and I first met, he would ask me, oh, will you change your hair? Will you change your perfume? Will you change, are you willing to get breast implants? All these things, because he was trying to see on a soul level, he was asking, okay, how much are you willing to change yourself so that you will, accept love? There were some things I was willing to say yes to. There were some things I was willing to say no to. Sometimes I said yes just because I didn't want to deal with, ruffling any feathers, but I wasn't staying 100% true to me and my authenticity. I was only about 2 years into publicly being more authentic and true to who I am. So even though my situation has changed and is a bit different, just to give you something to relate to, if you guys aren't with your twin, by the way, physically, there are going to be other people in your life, and it could be a twin ray, it could be a twin soul. And by the way, there are multiple twins in the universe. It's not just one. It gets, sometimes that energy gets channeled through another person. It's very, very complicated process. I know some of you have a hard time hearing that, but my point is to focus on, you have the opportunity to learn these lessons regardless of whether or not you're with your twin, because that is the real purpose of being with your twin flame, twin ray, twin soul, twin whatever. It's a match in frequency is all it really is, and it brings up all these lessons. So regardless of who it is that's in your life, these lessons are going to be coming up for you, and it is a spiritual process. This isn't just about an obsession about, am I going to have that love returned to me? Although that is what a lot of the dogma states, okay? Yes, that love is available, but they're teaching you through self-love, through boundaries, and stating no, and stating, okay, I'm going to be in my power around this individual, because a lot of the blue rays have given so much of their power away. I included. All the blue rays go through this, but now we're having an opportunity to say, okay, you've been in separation, you've had all these lessons, now it's time to actually apply these. And once you get through this, and I can tell you it's not an easy thing to do, because you love them and you want to say yes to them and you want to make them happy, but at the same time, you can't do it at your own expense. So they're only going to be uncomfortable for a short while. And most likely, the things that they're asking you to do are things that you're going to say yes to in the future. But it isn't something that they can rush. It isn't something that they can force. It's something that they can say, hey, this is kind of upsetting. Okay, great. You need maybe take a look at that. They can take a look at what it is that's upsetting for them instead of changing their external circumstances. That's what they're being asked to do. A lot of the feminine went through a long period of stating, I'm going to change all my external circumstances so that I can feel more comfortable. But that isn't working, and that isn't true authenticity or being in your power. A lot are shifting in that way, and then the masculine is having the chance to say, okay, now we're switching the lesson. Like there's always a polarities within lessons. So he's learning how to ask you to stand in your power because he's needing to learn to hear no. These lessons are never one-sided, you guys. So if you are definitely like putting your twin down, please understand there's a more empowered perspective. So some of these things that they may be asking you to do, sometimes it's like, it can be anything, but for some things it'll be a repeat of what they asked you in the past. And it could be with somebody new, like, are you willing to change your hair? Are you willing to change your perfume? Are you willing to change the way that you dress? Are you willing to be more overtly, sexual in your, demeanor? Are you, all these different things. Are you, and it could be something different. Like, are you willing to stay the night, in the same house? And you may not be. Are you, you're going to know these things. Like, ooh, I don't like your car. Why don't you sell it and get this car over here? And it's just, it's going to create some irritation within you. It's going to hit your third chakra. That's where it's going to hit you. This is where you place your hands over your hands, over that chakra, and just say, no, I'm not comfortable with that. And be willing to state it within yourself, no, because I couldn't live with myself being with this partner, acting in the way and all, and meeting their every whim. And say like, no, I love my hair. I happen to really like this color right now. Maybe in the future I'll go back to where I let all the gray show, but that's not who I am right now. That's not how I'm expressing myself. That's, and this perfume, I happen to love it. It's a heart chakra opening. It's got roses in it. I happen to love it. You've just got to stay true to you. They need to hear the say no. This is back to the giver and taker dynamic. So you've got givers and you've got takers, and people switch these roles all the time. I'll sometimes catch myself doing the taking, and I'll sometimes watch myself giving too much giving, just to learn both sides of the situation. It isn't always like he's a taker, he's a giver, or she's a taker, she's a giver. It's like you'll meld with different people and experience these things in different ways from different perspectives because we are multidimensional beings, okay? That's how it works. So be careful with the labels and the blaming, because that's just giving your power away anyway. There are better, more empowering ways to handle these sorts of situations. Back to the giver and the taker, though. It's like the empath and the narcissist. One is going to be constantly asking you, give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that, in terms of change this, change that. And it's not necessarily that they want you to do that. It's just that on a soul level, they're asking you, how much are you willing to shift? They're going to respect you by you stating no and staying true to yourself. Because the feminine leading the masculine in this way is teaching them authenticity and standing in their power, because this is something that they have been practicing internally for several months now, and it's been really shifting within them, but they're starting to learn it externally with you or some other feminine in their life. Takers are the ones that will never set the boundaries. It will never be that way. It's always the givers that have to set the boundaries. It's just the way it works. So this is how it is. Some of these fears that are coming up with that is, oh, they won't respect me, or gosh, I finally have him in my life again, or her. I have the masculine in my life again. Like, I don't want to risk losing that. So you've got this real dilemma internally, but you really know that deep down, it's time to stand up for who you are, and do it with compassion. It's not about like, how dare you ask me to keep changing my, it's not like that. It's just listen, I hear you. I know this bothers you, but this is part of who I am, and I feel comfortable being me right now. Okay? They're going to have their own stuff that they have to deal with. Some of them are going to have a little bit of a temper, but they need practice hearing no. And they need practice seeing you. Do you remember what it was like when you first stepped into your authenticity? This is like level 2, okay? And it wasn't an easy process then, and it's getting a little bit easier now. But it's also harder because it's with somebody you really want, to respect and keep in your life. I'm here to tell you the situation is pretty much already resolved. It's one way to think about doing that. So I am just having to read some of my notes because they have so many things that they want to say. Some of the things that they are stating may come out messy. They may almost attack you. They may have these passive aggressive comments. And there's a way that I'm handling it to help make it easier for someone who's in my life that I'm playing this dynamic out with, as well myself. So I wanted to share that with you in order to help make it easier for you both. So I'll show you, I'll show you how that works, okay? So I promise you, as long as you're remaining compassionate, this is going to get a lot easier for you both. And just, part of it is just detaching a little bit from themselves freaking out, from whoever it is around you that's asking you to shift something or to be anything other than true to yourself, because their version of what's true to you may seem a little bit different from what's true to you right now. I'm a chameleon. Things change for me. I'll do my hair for a couple years one way. I'll do it totally different another way. I'll wear one style of clothing. I may wear a different style of clothing next year. I change it up. It's just, it's part of my nature. So if somebody has a very narrow viewpoint of who you are, this is going to challenge some of that for them. But this is how I see you. And I'm like, but that's not who I am. So you got to be strong in saying no, stay compassionate. This is huge. So I'm going to tell you something. In the 3 cards of the day, Lady Venus came up. She is one that helps you embody unconditional love and to provide this in the world, how to be that, how to be more loving in these conflicting situations, because they can be very, very intense. So something that the person playing this out with me has shown me, and it's so profound, is using the different heart flames. For those of you that don't know, is within your heart chakra, you have 3 heart flames. You can Google the trifold flame, or if you're interested, Google below or put comments below, and I'd be happy to teach, a little class on the threefold flame if you want to know about this and how to heal with it, because they're 1/16 of an inch tall usually, and you can expand them They include 3 different rays of light, one of which is unconditional love, coming straight from source. And so what I typically do is I will expand it. It looks like flames, which is also a ray of light, and I'll expand it to be, I mean, they're telling me right now, this is why I'm wearing this color pink. This is very similar to that heart energy, but you just surround yourself with it. And then what I do is I tend to take it, and then if there's a conflict with the other person, I will surround them with the love, because what I can feel is I can feel how much they're struggling, and I can feel how difficult it is. So I first surround myself, and then I invite them to be surrounded by it as well. It shifts so fast, it's within seconds. But this individual showed that to me and did that with me, and I was really heavily triggered, and in the moment did that, and I was like, wow, it's totally gone. I've never had that happen before. Triggers normally can take a few hours. Some of you that know that full fight or flight situation, we're not just talking, oh, you put the fork over to the left and I'm upset by that and annoyed. This isn't a minor irritation. Full twin flame triggers are that fight or flight. You guys know what I'm talking about, so that are on the journey. So that was going on in the situation. And yeah, that's what he did, and boom, it was gone. So it removes conflict energy. It's the ultimate neutrality. So that's what I've personally found to work for me. It's something that may work for you, and so it's something I'm exploring. You can also use it for your food and all kinds of fabulous things. It's really great. If you want to learn more about it, let me know, because we can do that this week if you want to. So yes, that is what has been happening, and it resolves all of the conflict within seconds. And that way we're able to go from an emotional place and overwhelm into being able to discuss the situation and say, look, this is what I'm being asked to do. I'm being asked to be true to myself. And if some of them may not be able to hear what's happening cognitively, you may have to wait weeks. You may have to wait days, to know what's happening. And I always ask permission. Is it safe to share this? Is this something that they want to know? And I never, ever offer it as like an authoritative, well, I know what's happening and you don't. That's not going to get you anywhere, and it's not compassionate. So that's a power play is what it is. So, but yeah, something that they want to do is give you kudos, because I know that this isn't necessarily easy for all of you to say no to your twin when you want to say no, and not just out of fear, but just authenticity. Like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. They want you to pat yourself on the back. Look how far you've come. Even if you're not stating no or staying true to yourself 100% of the time, look at how far you've come compared to where you were before. And some of you are going to see this playing out in multiple different ways. So, and again, they want me to reiterate that it's something I'm stating to the person that I'm playing this out with is, this isn't no forever. This is no right now. And I'll do it if that comes, if that feels right, then it's something I'm going to do, okay? And something I've asked this individual to do is to pay attention. If that's something that's really strong for you, then pay attention to that. Take a look at it. Why is that so important that somebody be a certain way for you so that you can appreciate them? You get where I'm coming from? Okay. So that was really long-winded, but that's just, talking about boundaries and authenticity. And just keep saying no and be patient, because I promise you the masculine is going to shift. And some of them are going to push you and, ask your boundaries like 3 or 4 times. And that's where I get irritated. If I have to repeat my boundaries because I'm so aware of other people's, if I have to repeat them like 2 to 3 times, I start to question whether or not I want that person in my life, because people in my life respect my boundaries. But when I check in and say, I'll always check in and say, is this, somebody worth keeping in my life? And they're like, absolutely, because do you remember the toning in your ears and all of this? There were a number of things when we met. So, yeah. I know that some of you may be going back and thinking, well, what if this puts me into a period of separation? that's something you've got to risk, because something else I'll share with you is with that, that individual in the beginning when I first said, a few years ago when we met, and I said, sure, I'll change all these things. He ended up taking off anyway. So just remember that. Remember that part, because you guys ended up going in separation anyway. So you might as well stay true to yourself. You're going to be a lot happier, and honestly, they will too. The next situation that we're talking about is resistance versus flow. And some of you are noticing that there's some resistance. And what I'm going to say to you is this. When that happens, there's some sort of underlying fear. What I usually do is I sit down with the fear and I'll state, come and sit in my lap. What is it that you would like to say? I pretend it's like a child, and say, come talk to me. What is it that's not feeling heard? Talk to me about what this is. They usually have a story involved, and I just surround them with that pink from my, heart flames that get extended. By the way, if you work with that, make sure you collapse the heart flames back down, because it can be really difficult to sleep if you don't. So I just say, let's explore this. And then we talk about it, and usually I understand, and it goes back to an old trauma. I say, okay, thanks for telling me and sharing this with me. And just say, just give the little child a hug or love, or however you do that, okay? With these things that are happening, you can either resist it, which resistance energy is not comfortable, or you can go with the flow. A lot of times the masculine is experiencing right now with the power dynamic, they're having some resistance to hearing no, and they're not just going with the flow of it. And some of the feminine are not going with the flow in terms of stating no and stating true to themselves. So what they're asking you to do is try taking a minute and going with the flow. And if you don't like it, two things. Start focusing on what it is that you want to have happen, because you can change anything through your thoughts and your emotions. This is always constantly creating a reality. If you don't like it going, you can always go back to your old way of doing things. Go back to resisting, but try it for a little while. Try it with one or two things, with just going with the flow and saying, all right, well, if that happens, if separation happens, it happens. You're going to realize, when you just say, okay, bring it. When you do that, a lot of the concerns get released. So if you're manifesting something, by the way, because this is something else we're talking about, you can change all of this through your thoughts, and especially with the resistance. So if you're not getting what you want, just understand, and this is me talking to the masculine right now, because some of you are starting to watch, is, if you're not getting what you want, it's not the other person's fault. Be sure not to blame them. Try manifesting differently. Shift your thoughts. It takes practice, and I have a webinar on this if you need some extra assistance. So frustration on this path comes from resistance, and sometimes not knowing how to heal the pattern. So it's just, some people are a little too hyper-focused on what they don't have, are creating more of not having what it is that they want, and just don't know how to shift their perspective or their focus. But it's very simple to be able to get anything in life that you want. I've got everything I've ever wanted, because there are times that I have shifted my focus. And I've learned very quickly that if you're starting to manifest what you don't want, you're not stuck with it. You can shift it by shifting your thoughts back. And that was the best thing, because I always was afraid of thinking the wrong thoughts or thinking more negative thoughts, because that would manifest and it would stay. But Source is like, no way, change your thoughts and you change, your whole scenery. So I just said, cool. So that brings us into shifting our focus to being more positive. They want me to ask you, are you focusing on the problem, or are you focusing on the solution? Focusing on the problem keeps you stuck there. Having a creative outlet is going to get you unstuck. Being creative opens up the heart. It's very, very tightly tied to the heart. Some of you are going to see that from some of the cards of the day in the latter part of February. I think it was about 6 days ago. I think it was like 2 readings ago. So something else that's shifting due to all the different shifts in thinking is being tied to shifting inner talk. And try and do this often. Check in with how you were talking to yourself and others, because this is going to be, it's going to be reflecting, you know, how people are talking to you is how you're talking to yourself. So if somebody's being a little bit snarky with you, just say, whoa, okay, I'm going to back off from that, you know, individual for a moment and let them be, you know, snarky and sarcastic with themselves, because chances are they're having a very difficult time processing that. And there may be something within you that is attracting that sort of thing. So they want me to ask, are you choosing love or are you choosing fear? Okay. Are you saying nice things about yourself or are you being critical? And most of this is shifting into being more positive. It's an interesting year. I'm really enjoying 2017 because everybody's having to step more into their power. And the more you say nice things about yourself, the more people are going to be saying nice things about you. The more you focus on the positive attributes about yourself, the more other people will be focusing on that as well, instead of focusing on the negative or what's wrong or what needs to be fixed when you're already whole and complete as is. People with a, you know, addiction to perfection or afraid that they're not going to be loved because they're not perfect are the people that are focusing on what's wrong or what the issue is, or I have to fix this so I'll be lovable. And it's just so not true. All of you is lovable. We always have lessons. And something I'm enjoying is somebody in my life, we're going through the same lessons at the same time so we can talk about it and be support for one another, versus the old situation where that wasn't a possibility because the other person wasn't really willing to look at their stuff. So which is okay. Let's see. I mean, I personally am one of those that's being asked as well to look at the focus more on the positive and the things that I really like about myself versus the things that I don't. And I'll tell you, this negative self-talk and focusing on what needs to be fixed and the perfectionism and all of that comes from the mother's line. This is ancestral. This voice that's inside your head doesn't come from you, not your authentic you. Okay, this is a voice that's been passed down several generations, and many of the twins and those resonating with the twin flame path are starting to clear through this. Okay, so this is how it's shifting. And just watch your relationships. If people are talking to you in a certain way, say, either start manifesting different people into your life or start watching what it is that how you're talking to yourself. You'll catch yourself in the shower like having these conversations with yourself. Watch those. So these are all the blue ray lessons that are going on right now. People from other rays may be experiencing these as well. It's quite common. The collective is just 5 minutes behind us. So just to let you know, you guys are leading the collective. Those who resonate with this path and with my messages and with these lessons, you are definitely leading the collective, because this is something that's been happening. So if you've been wondering what the twin flame or twin ray or twin path is all about, it's not just being in the physical with your twin or just embodying unconditional love. It's leading the collective with certain lessons, particularly power lessons, because you'll notice the planet is going through a number of blue ray lessons right now. May not seem like it, but people are starting to stand in their power. So my message to you is stand in your power and do so with love. Detach from love when you need to, and do what's right for you when you need to take a break and stand back and say, okay, I'm going to take care of me right now. Do so. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. If you have somebody that you feel like would resonate with this message, please share it with them. Thank you for the likes and subscribing, and comment below if this is something that resonates for you. In terms of an event, I have a Q&A that is this Thursday at 7 p.m. If some of you are having a hard time financially, you can join in on that webinar for a decent price instead of a full session, and your questions are going to be answered. So awesome. I hope that's helpful for you. Lots of love. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting and sharing and all of that. Thank you for being on this wild ride with me. All right? Lots of love to you. Bye.